Hey, good morning. Actually, good afternoon, everyone. I guess depending on where you are dialing in from. I'm Steve Phipps, and I'm here with Fancher Sargent with CRS CPAs, and we're glad you're here with us today. We are going to, over the next 45 to 60 minutes, talk about how you can increase your revenue and then secure more of your profits. Let me cover a couple of things here. First, let me go ahead and give you a quick intro. I am the founder and the owner of Wayfind Marketing, and we are based in Memphis, Tennessee. So you can see a couple of snapshots of my family. We like to be outside in the outdoors when not doing work things. And I've been in the marketing space for a number of years. I've launched Wayfind Marketing in 2015. I spent a number of years with Chick-fil-A, both as an owner operator as well as in the marketing side of things. So yes, I have worn the Chick-fil-A cow costume. It is a lot of fun. You can do a lot of things, but it is also extremely hot. Fancher, why don't you take it?
Yeah, so I'm Fancher Sargent. I'm the managing shareholder here at CRS CPAs. We are a multi-office firm in West Tennessee. I'm personally located in Jackson, Tennessee, and been here straight out of college, 25 plus years. You can see there's pictures of me and my family. We love to travel when I'm not working, and these are our most recent road trip to the Northeast. So you can see we had a lot of fun visiting Niagara Falls all the way over to Gettysburg, seeing where Lincoln gave the Gettysburg Address.
And a little known fact is that Fancher and I went to college more years ago than I care to think it was.
We will not admit that.
So let me give you an overview of what you can expect today. We're going to start out talking about where are you, both in terms of revenue and profit. Then I'm going to cover 4 ways that you can increase your revenue. Then Fancher is going to take it and talk about 4 ways that you can have a positive impact on profitability. And we're going to allow time for Q&A. Now, if you have questions as we are going through this, please drop those in the chat. Fancher and I will be watching that. And so we will answer questions as we go. And we'll also allow for time for questions at the end of each of our segments. So this is what you're going to get over the next 45 minutes or so are actionable things that you can do to have impact on both your revenue and your profits. So this is not a sales pitch. This is good, useful information that you can take and go do something with. All right. Now, getting started, here's the question. What are your revenue and profit goals for this year? How are you trending towards those now that we're about halfway through the year? Oftentimes, of course, when we plan those goals out, a lot of things happen, some that can have a really positive impact and others that can get in the way. So what are those obstacles? What's getting in the way of you increasing your revenue? What's getting in the way of increasing your profits? So I want you to be thinking about some of those things as we go through this. Now, I also want you to think about, we want this time to be productive for you. So what is, and I would ask you, drop this in the chat, because I would like to see this. What is one thing that you hope to get from today? Some of you may be here specifically because you're interested in the revenue side. Some of you may be here more for the profit side. Maybe it's both. But if you'll just drop that in the chat, and we'll keep an eye on that as we go. All right. Now, I want you to think about this, 80%. What do you think that means as it relates to how people buy today? I hear a lot of different things when I ask that question. Ultimately, what it is 80% of the buying decision is made before they ever reach out and talk to you. Now, depending on what you do, that number can vary. But fundamentally, what it means is the way that people buy has changed and continues to change because of the amount of information that's available to us. So before somebody comes out to your place of business, before somebody comes out to your practice, where are they going? What information are they looking for? What questions are they asking? If they go to your website, can they get good answers to the questions that they have, not only about what you do, but about the specific problems that you solve? And if they can't find that information, how likely do you think they are to come out to your place of business, to buy something online? Again, whatever it is ultimately you're wanting them to do, depending on your type of business, your type of organization, the harder it is for them to get that information, the less likely they are to move forward in that process. And think about something that maybe you have bought recently. You're researching things. So maybe it was a big purchase. Maybe it was something like a vehicle, or maybe it was a TV. But when you're researching, think about the kinds of information you're looking for. You're looking for pricing. You're looking for reviews, things that will help you make that buying decision. And if that information is not easily and quickly available, they're going to more likely to go somewhere else. So we want to talk about today on the marketing side of things, marketing and sales side of things, what are specific things that you can do to increase the likelihood that they are going to reach out to you, that they're going to come by and see you, that they're going to do something through the website if you want them to do something there. Okay, so there's 4 things. Each of these is going to have a question to start out with. And this question here is, can you easily and succinctly tell buyers what you do and why it matters to them? Now, this question gets asked in different ways. This question could get asked of you if they're having a conversation with you. Maybe you meet this person somewhere. Maybe you're at a networking event. Maybe they're on your website. So the question is, can you easily and succinctly tell buyers what you do and why it matters? Chances are you know exactly what you do, and you know all the benefits, all the reasons why somebody should buy your product or do business with you. But what ends up happening a lot of times is, because you know it so well, it actually becomes more difficult to tell that person succinctly, because you're thinking of all the different things that you do. So the recommendation here is clarify your message. Okay, now I know you're thinking, okay, that's great, Steve. I need something actionable here. So here are 2 action steps that you can take. Number 1 is talk to some of your customers. Ask them, why do you buy from us? Why do you do business with us? Why do you come to our practice? Why do you choose us over our competitors? And listen to the words that they use to describe what they experience and the benefits that they receive. Now, the second part of this is we use a framework called Story Brand. There's a book, highly recommend. So if you're a reader or if you listen to books on Audible, it's How to Build a Story Brand by Donald Miller. Highly recommend it. And the idea of a one-liner, there's a 3-part framework. You talk about the problem that your customer faces, the solution that you provide, and what they can expect as a result of that. So what does success look like? And so when somebody says, hey, what do you do? You can answer that question. So if somebody comes to me and says, Steve, what do you do? I say, well, we work with business owners who are trying to grow and scale their business, but they're getting stuck. So we help them develop a plan, and then we help them execute the plan so that they can grow and scale their business profitably. So the problem is they're having difficulty growing their business for any number of reasons. So the solution is we help them with strategy and websites and things like that, in the execution of that, which results in their growing and scaling. So I would definitely encourage you to take a look at that. But think about that. If you hear from your customers, what is the value that they get? And sometimes it'll surprise you. And then think about your one-liner. Now, number two, can buyers easily and quickly navigate your website and find the information they need to make a buying decision? Now, depending on what you do, maybe they're going there to get basic information. Where are you? What's your phone number? They may be looking for context of if you offer a variety of products, I want to learn more about what those products are. How are you different than your competitor down the road? If you're in a B2B sales environment and you want them to schedule a call or start an estimate or whatever it might be, they have questions about pricing. They have questions about how you work with people. What does your process look like? Can they easily get that information? And if they can't, what do you think they're going to do? What do you do if you go to a website and you're looking for information and you can't find it and you're clicking around, or maybe the website's really difficult to navigate? What do? You end up leaving. And so here's the takeaway for this point. Make your buyers the hero of the story, not your brand. Now, there's some overlap here with clarifying your message. The idea of this is, who's the most important person when it comes to your website? Is it you, or is it your customers? Is it your buyers? Well, of course, it's the buyers. However, if we look at our websites, a lot of times what happens is it's the exact opposite. We talk about us and we don't really address how we solve our customers' problems. So here are three things that you can consider, three tests that you can run on your website to see how you're doing on this. Now, the first is called the grunt test. So this is the idea: if a caveman comes to your website, within about 8 to 10 seconds, can he figure out what you do, why it matters, and what to do next? If your website does not easily answer those three questions, you're most likely going to be missing out on opportunities because it's not clear. Clarity trumps clever every single time. The second test is the you versus we test. Here's what I mean by that. If you go to your website, homepage, service page, etc., on Windows, Control F, and type in the word you, how many times does it show up? And again, so the context here is you're talking to your customer. So we want the content focused on them. Now, contrast that with how many times do variations of the word we show up? We, us, our. You want the ratio to be more you than we and us. Is there a time and a place to talk about we and us? Yes, absolutely. But it's a context of how we solve your problem. Now, the third test is the navigation test. How easily can people get to the information that they need to know what they need to know in order to take the next step? Do they have to dig really far to get to that information? Is it easy to navigate? And your navigation bar at the top, how many options do you have in your menu? If you have more than 4 or 5, you've got way too many. And what happens is our brains get overloaded. So run these three tests. The grunt test fails, clarify your message. You can use a one-liner and use that to help create a message that easily answers those questions. You versus we, maybe that it's time to rewrite some of your content, putting more focus on your customer, the problems they face, how you solve that, and what success looks like. The navigation test, it might be you need to reduce the number of items in your navigation to just a small handful. Number 3, can buyers find answers to their questions on your website, or do they have to talk to you instead? Let that one sink in. Can they get answers to their questions about what you do, how it helps them, what the process looks like, pricing? Or do they have to talk to you instead? If the answer is they have to talk to you instead, you're going to be missing out on opportunities. So here again, think about a scenario where you have been researching, gathering information before making a buying decision. Maybe it's a buying decision for your business or your practice. What are the questions you have? Well, what I want to show you here is that the takeaway is you want to answer your buyer's questions on your website. They have questions about pricing? Great, answer that. That gets into a whole other conversation about how to answer that, especially if what you do is not easily priced. What I want to show you is that there are 5 categories of questions. So as you think about content that you can put on your website, articles, blogs, videos, the questions fall into 5 basic categories. Now, there are other categories of questions, but these are the primary 5 that the questions fall into when somebody is looking to make a buying decision. Number 1, of course, is pricing. I mean, how often do you want to know how much does this cost? All the time, right? You don't want to buy something. You don't want to waste your time potentially having conversations with a salesperson or driving to a store only to find out it's not anywhere in your budget. Wouldn't that have been nice to have known, at least have some idea what's the pricing range? Give me something here. The second is the problems. Now, this can be relate to the problems that they have that your problem solves, but also what are the problems of your industry? Okay, I have to own it because I've been in the marketing industry for since 2011, and I talked to a number of people that had really bad experiences with a marketing agency. So one of the problems that needs to be addressed is, hey, here are some of the issues that you may run into working with an agency. There are limitations as to what we can do. And so it's being open and honest about that, because again, it goes back to answering the questions that they have. Comparison, you versus another, your products versus your competitors' products, Ford versus Chevy, Toyota versus Nissan, etc. We want to know, how does this stack up to other choices in the market? Reviews are that can be testimonials, but especially if you're buying a product. I don't know about you, I don't know anybody who doesn't at least consider the reviews on Amazon before they buy something. I'm at least looking at the stars, scanning a few things. Now, if it's something that costs $5, I'm not necessarily worried about it. The more it costs, the more I want to know those things. And then the best of creating content. What are the best marketing agencies? What are the best CPA agency firms? These are the types of things that people search for. And when you answer the questions that people are asking online, remember the 80%, it increases the likelihood that they're going to show up on your website because you're answering their questions. So that's the takeaway here. Answer their questions. Use these 5 categories as a framework. Now, I don't know what your buying process looks like. We all have a buying process. If you're retail, you have a buying process. There are steps that your customers go through to decide to buy your product or service. It might be a super short buying cycle. It might be a really long buying cycle, depending on the size and the scope and the level of commitment. So take this into that context. But the question here is, are you wasting time and energy chasing and trying to win new customers? Now, for folks that might be in retail or hospitality or something along those lines, you might have individual products, but then maybe you also have bigger events where you're trying to bring organizations in. Or maybe you have individualized services, but then maybe there's something more corporate that you're wanting to promote and grow. So there's always going to be some sort of a process. And what ends up happening a lot of times is, especially if people are coming in, they don't necessarily know you, they're coming in through your website, is we play this cat and mouse game sometimes of chasing the prospects and trying to figure out how can we build that trust and credibility. So the recommendation here is you want to streamline your sales process and specifically map it out. Oftentimes, organizations do not have a clearly defined sales process, or what is the buyer's journey? What are the steps that they take? What are the questions that need to be answered to move them from knowing with clarity what the problem is all the way through how you solve it better than your competitors? Number 2 is get sales and marketing together. Now, depending on the size of your organization, this may be super easy. Sometimes marketing and sales live in silos. They don't really talk to each other. Marketing's job is bring traffic, bring leads, get people here, and then we toss it over the wall and sales team will run with it and they try to close it. Get them together, have conversations. Marketing needs to understand the questions that the salespeople are hearing so that marketing can then create content to answer those questions so that the salespeople can use the content with their prospects, with their buyers. Put it on the website, helps drive traffic. Now, another tactic that I really like, and even if you don't have a salesperson per se or a sales process, if you communicate with anyone through email, use one-to-one videos. There are two tools that we suggest. One is called Loom, Loom. The other is Vidyard, Vidyard, Loom and Vidyard. They work in your browser. It's super easy to be able to record a video. As long as you've got a decent mic and a decent camera, you're good. And it's a way to answer questions and send information instead of typing out this really long and gnarly email where there's no context, emotion is absent. Record a 90-second video and send it. It's a great way, especially if you're trying to connect with someone that you've not met before. It gives them the opportunity to see you and hear you. You can start building that trust and relationship sooner and faster. It's also, we use it with a lot of our clients. Fancher, I'm sure I've sent videos to you. It's one-to-one videos where I can explain something or I can screen share. So it's a great way to communicate concisely and quickly without having to send a long, gnarly email. And another thing is where in any scenario, if you're trying to tell someone or convince someone that they should become your customer, they should buy from you, they should do business with you, it becomes very easy to tell them and give a lot of information. In those scenarios, what if you ask them questions? What if you ask them specific strategic questions that help them understand their need and ultimately how you can help solve that need, solve that problem, create that opportunity? Again, there are lots of great resources available specifically about asking questions, the types of questions. That's a big part of what I do as a coach is ask questions to help people uncover a lot of times what they already know. They just need help figuring it out. So these are the four things: clarify your message, fix your website, answer your buyers' questions, streamline your sales process. We've covered a lot. If you have questions, go ahead and start dropping any. If you have any marketing related questions, go ahead and drop any of those in the chat. Here's what I would encourage you to think about. Again, I know we just covered a lot of ground, but what can you do in the next 30 days to make forward progress? Pick one thing. Is it clarifying your message? Maybe it's talking to your customers, having a phone call, invite them in, ask them questions, and just listen, take notes. Is it to make some easy, quick fixes on your website? Do you need to put a content plan into play where you begin answering your buyers' questions on the website? And maybe that first step is you have a brainstorming session with your team. Hey, what are all the questions we get? What do you hear? Is it start using one-to-one video? Help streamline some of your communications. Go ahead and write that one thing down. Now, I mentioned one of these books earlier, so I'm going to point you towards these two resources: Building a Story Brand, They Ask You Answer. Building a story brand. How do you create messaging that's easy for people to understand? It's based on the structure of story. They Ask You Answer is a framework for sales and marketing based around this idea of creating content that answers all of your buyers' questions. Now, I will say I am certified as a guide for Story Brand, and I'm a certified coach for They Ask You Answer. So a lot of what I've talked about today is based on what you find in both of these resources. Okay, so if you have questions, drop those in the chat. Also, feel free to email me directly if you have questions or would like more information on any of the things that I've covered. You can reach me, steve@wayfindmarketing.com. It's on the screen. Fancher, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Thanks for that, Steve. That's great information. So now that we've talked about taking control of your sales and marketing, I just want to share some 4 ways business owners can take control of their profitability and put more dollars into your pockets. I mean, after all, we're starting with the assumption that you started your business not just out of a passion, but to create economic benefits for you and your family. So let me just learn to navigate this here. There we go. So first, the legal disclaimer. If I give any tax advice out in this presentation, I'm just simply saying be sure to run it by your own personal tax advisor, or feel free to reach out to us to ask questions so we can make sure anything I present applies directly to your facts and circumstances. So with that, let's get into those 4 ways to take control of your profitability. The number one is simply just know your numbers. It may sound overly simple, but the first step is you got to know exactly how much money is coming in and going out and where it's going. The key to maintaining a good profit margin is through good bookkeeping records. And too often we see this kind of get put on the back burner for a lot of business owners, especially in the beginning of their business life cycle. And sometimes that just kind of becomes hodgepodge at best until the end of the year. But you need accurate and timely numbers so that you can run financial reports that offer you accurate information to base any decision on. In fact, a lot of times we see business owners operate under the assumption, well, I've got money in my pocket, I must be doing okay. But to really get a good, clear picture of your profitability, you've got to be tracking your metrics, such as your gross profit, your net income. Understand where your cash is truly going. Once you've got this foundation, you can really start digging in a little more. But you want to dig into things such as customer acquisition cost. Is your cost structure adequate for your own industry or the business that you're in? Are you even properly insured? I can't tell you how many times we sit down with a client and looking at their business financials, pull them together, and they realize they're grossly insured because they never had a good set of numbers to work from. So a good accounting system at a minimum is going to provide you with 2 basic financial statements, the profit and loss statement and the balance sheet. And the main thing I want to point out here is that not all dollars coming in and going out are necessarily expenses or income. And you've got to have a good set of those reconciled accounting records to help ensure you're maximizing your tax write-offs and thus minimizing your tax liability. And while your profit loss is important, because that's the one we see most business owners want to focus on, am I making money? And yeah, that's really important. But a good balance sheet is also important because it's a reminder of what assets you own and really who you still owe money to. In other words, a balance sheet can be a peek into the future to remind you of what obligations you've got coming up. Too often we'll see business owners look at their bank statement, say, I've got money in the bank. Let me go out, make a big purchase, go out, take a vacation with the family, completely forgetting they've got their tax bill coming up or they owe a big vendor that they had yet to pay for. And then they're scrambling around trying to get, resources put together to pay those bills. So that's why we say you need those two sets of financial statements at a minimum. Oh, sorry about that. There we go. We're back.
Welcome back.
Yeah. So now that you know your numbers, we want to look for ways to save money. And one things I always like to point out is saving money is not always about saving taxes. Yes, your taxes are going to be a big expense, but we caution you, don't get solely focused on your taxes as the only means to put more dollars in your pocket. Be sure to shop around, negotiate with your vendors, know what your best value to the business is. If you just dread bookkeeping or managing the technology because you'd rather be creating new products or servicing your customers, consider outsourcing those functions. Focus your time on why you started your business and what you do best. This will generate more profits for you than if you take on those tasks you just dread. A lot of times we see business owners take on those tasks that they just truly hate, or a lot of times are ill-equipped for, all in the name of saving money. When in fact, you're giving up precious time and energy that you should be using to focus on what actually generates the revenue coming in. It's something I can speak from personal experience. Too often, we took that approach and have learned the hard way. So, number 2, funding a retirement plan. Another simple yet often overlooked aspect we see business owners skip out on in order to maximize their profits. Now, I'll admit, one of the first comments we get a lot of times, especially if it's a early life cycle business, that I'll worry about that when cash flow is appropriate, or even my business is my retirement. And I get it. You're a small business just starting out, you're struggling just to keep the lights on. That the option of funding a retirement plan seems like a far off dream right now. But the truth is, you need to be considering it now and making it a plan for it sooner rather than later, because funding that retirement is a great way to keep more of your money working for you. And in fact, the right plan will help defer or eliminate taxes altogether. Right here, this is just a quick list of different plans that are available to business owners, and I'm not going to go over every one. I just wanted you to know that it's important to know that you've got options, and you just really need to sit down and discuss your ultimate goals for retirement with your business advisor. Even if you don't plan to fund it now, go ahead and lay the groundwork for that discussion so that when that time comes, you've got it ready to go, and you've got one of the most useful tools to put more money in your pocket and not Uncle Sam's. Third strategy, hire family members. This is a great way to keep more of your profits and a way to minimize your tax burden while shifting income to your children. So what I mean by income shifting, that's where a parent can pay their child a bona fide wage below the taxable amount. And so you can see here in the current year, 2023, $13,850 can be paid to a child completely tax-free. You can then use that money to fund, say, a child's Roth IRA, where then they can then later use that to pay for college expenses tax-free. But there are just some requirements on that before you go just jump out and hire your child in your business. Let's talk about some of those requirements. One, like I said, it's got to be a bona fide work that you're hiring them for. In other words, it's got to be something that you would have or could have hired someone else to do. You got to pay them a reasonable wage. In other words, what would you pay this person to do a similar job that was not your child? And some examples are administrative duties. If the market rate is $15 an hour, pay $15 an hour. Oftentimes we'll see this in the form of business owners hiring their child for things like, shredding, filing work, helping the parent owner make deliveries, cleaning the office, or even research. I mean, heck, a lot of our children are better at Googling and finding answers for us than we are ourselves. Pay them to do that. Just be sure you pay them a fair wage for the work they're performing. Now, quick note, you got to actually pay the child, not just claim you paid them. This means you've got to have funds leave your bank account and go into the child's account, whether that's a bank account with their name on it, or they cash a check, or it goes straight to a Roth IRA like I discussed earlier. You can put that money straight to a Roth IRA on behalf of your child. and then they can use those dollars for education expenses, but the dollars must go to the child. So how does that really save? Well, like I said, you're shifting money to the child. You're shifting income. So in this example, say between your income tax and your self-employment tax, if you got a tax rate of 40%, for every $1,000 of wages you shift to a family member, you're saving $400 in taxes. I don't know about you, but that's a bit of money to stick in my pocket. Number 4, take advantage of the IRS vehicle rules. Now, while we're not here to go into all the ins and outs of those rules, because everyone's facts and circumstances are different, but it's important to point out you've got 2 options for maximizing those benefits. One is the standard mileage rate, which the IRS allows you to take a rate that they set each year based on the business miles you put on your vehicle. Currently, that rate is 66.5 cents a mile. So for every mile, you're going to get a tax write-off of 66, almost 67 cents. Or you can use the actual operating cost of your vehicle, which includes the cost of that vehicle. So if you bought a $75,000 SUV that you're using in the business, you can write off the cost of that SUV plus the gas, maintenance, car washes, all that good stuff. But I do caution you to speak with your tax advisor to be sure you pick the right method that will fit, like I said, your circumstances. Because the last thing you want to do is raise any red flags with the IRS, especially if you flip back and forth between the 2 methods. There are situations where you can use the greater of the 2 methods, but it all depends on that first year you put that vehicle in use and how you make that election. So I caution you, make sure you speak to your advisor, but this is a great way to save money and put it more in your pocket. Now, real quick, I just want to go through a bonus tip. This is not really a sales plug, but as an accountant, I advise my clients to invest in sales and marketing. Because running any business requires you to find that perfect balance between sales and profit. I mean, without sales, there's no way to make a profit. But it's possible to have sales without making a profit. We see this all the time. And of course, no profits should be a major red flag for any business owner. So tracking and monitoring your sales data and those key performance indicators will help you focus on developing cost-effective strategies for getting the right customers. A lot of times I see, my clients who have said, well, any customer is a good customer. Any client's a good client as long as they're willing to pay me. And for a large part, that's not true. You want to concentrate on building the right customer relationships so that will help you reduce your customer attrition, which results in savings. You can't, I just, personal story, growing up in this business, I've seen other, customers and other CPAs that say any business that comes in is a good business. As long as I'm getting business, I'm growing. And I'm here to tell you the wrong business will actually keep you from growing. So if in sales and marketing is not your wheelhouse, I say invest in it. You'll be glad you did. So just to recap, know your numbers. You've got to start there in order to take control of your profitability. That's just anything else without starting there, you're wasting your time. Consider retirement funding, and if not, at least lay the groundwork for it. Look at shifting income to family members and use your vehicle in order to get some tax savings. So again, if you got any questions, there's my contact information. And we always If you don't have a tax advisor, we invite you to contact us. Our initial assessment is always no obligation. And we'd love to sit down and show you some ways to increase your profits and keep more money out of Uncle Sam's pockets.
I don't know anybody who would be opposed to that, Fancher. We thank you for joining us today. And a couple of quick notes for you in follow-up. As Fancher said, if you have any questions for either of us, please reach out to us. Fancher's contact information is on the screen. My email, steve@wayfindmarketing.com. Again, if you have questions about something specific that we talked about that was unclear, or that you would like more information about, or if you have something related to sales and marketing or accounting that we didn't talk about, again, feel free to reach out to us. Also, we will be sending out a recording of this. So keep an eye out for that email that should go out later this afternoon. So thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Have a fantastic day.